So we told you about that IMANI Africa report. Now, apart from just scoring overall a mark of some 48.78%, how Manifesto Promises of 2016 have been fulfilled by the Kufuor-led administration. It says, among other things, that outstandingly, we had about 162 promises and only 41 had been implemented. Well, it will mean that the rest are partially or not fulfilled at all. But the scores are all contained in a policy think tank manifesto report. They'll be doing this a number of years now. We'll take you through and then take you through what the content is, and then we'll come home and do some discussion. We'll call a rep of IMANI Africa, and then also we have Roxanne Nelson Dafamapo. He's a legal practitioner, but also a member of parliament for South Dying. He's here. And Roxanne, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, my brother.
Great. Okay, now the report is ready. Let me just sift through, and then you get to know what the contents are. First, it says, for the methodology, they look at this rating, excellent progress, and that will be in green, excellent, very good, good progress, and good. Being the marks, and satisfactory progress will be weak, fair, and then poor progress is poor. Yeah, makes now the output-based performance as indicated as follows. Overall, a total of 162 promises were made under the economy, 87 under general economy, trade and industry, 54 under agriculture, 21 under tourism. Now it says that a total of 41 promises have been fully implemented, and that makes up 25%. Now 101 partially implemented, that makes up 62%. And then 20 not implemented at all. And then for economy, trade and industry, they fulfilled fully. You can see 1% special import levy, the abolishment of 17.5% VAT NHIL on selected import medicines that are not produced locally, abolished also 17.5 VAT NHIL on financial services, passed the fiscal responsibility law. The fiscal council has also been established. We have the financial sector cleanup exercise has been carried out, and further actions continue to date. Partially and yet to be fulfilled, achieve double-digit GDP growth annually for the next 4 years. This has not been achieved. Savings from the reduction of interest rates paid on the country's debt stock, there's a little improvement in this area. Facilitate the passage of a consumer protection law. This law has not been passed. Now, reduce the corporate tax rate from 25% to 20%. This also has yet to be fulfilled. And then you have some indicators also there. Now, when it comes to the general economy, you have them fully. For the Tourism Act and Culture sector, supposed to have been the Creative Acts. We have a whole village for the creative arts industry. We just had that partially fulfilled with the cutting of the sword recently also seen. And then we have for education, kindergarten, human capital investment was a category under which they said 100, primary education, that's basic, full, so they have a full mark there. And then secondary or vocational, we have it at this point in time being around 38% overall, but Arabic education has seen considerable improvement at 70%. Meanwhile, 57% goes for STEM, that will be science, technical, mathematics education as well. Now, when it comes to fully fulfilled under health, we have reviewing and restructuring the sources of funding as well as the institutional arrangement for the management of the National Health Insurance Fund, directing and strictly seeding all funds raised through the NHIA levy into the fund itself. NHIL amendment bill was passed in Parliament, and a technical team was subsequently constituted. So restoring trainee allowances for nurses, that's been done. This has been restored. There was a manifesto promise. We've also seen that for teachers as well, or training colleges. And then we also have implementing a comprehensive plan for the safe disposal of biomedical waste, then incorporating traditional medicine in the health category system, working with the private sector to establish a world-class research and laboratory center within a responsive national laboratory system. And this falls under partially and yet to be fulfilled. Now also working with the private sector to establish a national bioequivalence laboratory, working with the private sector to establish trauma centers within hospitals along the main highways in order to facilitate medical treatment of citizens in cases of accidents. This we know has not been fulfilled. Now, when it comes to what the percentages are, you can have fully rescue and restructure the national health insurance. There's a 90% mark there. A policy on cancer, just 30%. Address sector disparities at 22.7%. Governance is very important because it's where usually the conversations are situated. We have fulfilled governance, corruption, and public accountability, establishment of the Office of the Special Prosecutor, ensure the passage of the Right to Information Bill. We know that has been passed into law. And then also local governance, clean up the recruitment process for local government service staff. That also has been fully fulfilled, but yet to be implemented. Governance, corruption, and public accountability, the inability to bring back the People's Assembly gatherings, undertake legal reforms to asset declaration, ensure strict enforcement of the Public Procurement Act, establishment of a corruption reporting website under the Whistleblowers Act of 2006, and yet to implement the promise to oversee the election of MMDCs. That has been withdrawn, just recently, so fresh in mind. Fulfilled, though, is the rollout of a national barracks regeneration program, develop a comprehensive cyber crimes and cybersecurity policy, provide the police with modern communication and policing equipment, and on the foreign affairs, the MPP will play an active part in the effort to create the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and after has now been initialed by our country, but yet to be fulfilled, and the security. Build 2 new police hospitals at Sunyani and Bolga to serve the health needs of police personnel. And the foreign affairs, help in the implementation of ROPA. It's also yet to be fulfilled, but partially fulfilled, I should say. Foreign affairs, there's a mark of some 75%. Governance and corruption has 23%. And local governance, 22%. We'll see how that goes. And I'm sure that the election of MMDCs all falls in this category. If that had been done, I'm sure, or was still in the pipeline, the percentages would have gone up subsequently. Oh, so we have we'll have a representative of IMANI online, but before that, we have Roxanne Nelson Dapamakpo, legal practitioner, but also member of parliament for South Dai. Thank you for joining me.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, it looks like the reports they've just been serialized by the various civil society organizations. What do you make of the latest one by IMANI?
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, customary to my constituents in Pekik, Bali, Pevetongo.
Very well.
Yet, it appeared so that the reports are following each other. But what's revealing is that it appears that the trend of analysis show clearly, it exhibits similar figures for government's performance. So it's no fluke that the initial reports done by the Political Science Department of the University of Ghana, which I think was the first one in the series, then the Transparency International, then followed by CDD's Afrobarometer, which was released last week and received a lot of mileage in the media, and now this. So for us in the NDC, it's a clear indicative that the people are asking us to come back, even though we have work to do.
So
Yes, given the analysis.
The report doesn't say that. Or you are okay.
I am.
You are making inferences.
Yes,
Yes,
I've mentioned 4 reports, and I'm telling you that the trend analysis in this clearly shows
a certain correlation.
A declining value of all the values that have been analyzed. It shows a decline for the performance of the government. So invariably, the people are asking for a replacement of the government. That's the point I'm making, and it is the NDC that will take over. So we should put our house in order and get ready and take over government. But the reports reveal a lot of issues that when we are given the opportunity to govern again as the NDC, we'll have to address. So for me, this will be my preliminary remarks on the matter. And clearly the values that we have seen from the IMANI are similar to the values we saw in the Afrobarometer.
Within the range of margin of error.
Yes. We will for the same for Transparency International, the same for the University of Ghana one. So that's where we are.
Why is it that the subject of corruption is almost like giving a certain semblance of government or the Kufuor administration not having a certain posture of commitment towards it?
Yes, you see, when the government speaks to persuade us that, oh, they are committed. But that is not reflective of their actions. That is why I keep saying that I prefer to not listen to what you are saying, but rather judge you by your conduct. What is the conduct of the government? The government, in an euphoric mood, caused us to establish, for instance, the Office of the Special Prosecutor. We made the point that the prosecutorial powers of the Attorney General, which is contained in Article 88, has been devolved onto other agencies to be able to prosecute cases, including corruption and corruption-related cases. So instead of establishing another state parastatal to deal with this matter, let us rather use the resource to re-energize, to re-motivate, to retool these prosecutorial agencies, i.e. the Narcotics Control Board, i.e. IFC, i.e. IOCO, i.e. the CID of the police service, i.e. the Attorney General, the Prosecutions Division of the Attorney General Department itself, and other agencies. Now, SNIT can prosecute pension fraud. That is also corruption. ECG can prosecute energy theft. That is also corruption. So let us rather use their resources. They said no. They want to establish these specialized agencies because, you see, it was a manifesto promise. We have set up the agency. We are in the 2nd year. And I raised some issues yesterday. I don't know whether you are aware that the Office of the Special Prosecutor, the government budgeted 180 million. Eventually, they released 28.87 million.
I listened to you, yeah.
For its work. Curiously, this release was for goods and services. There was no releases for compensation. And we'll be interrogating this matter later this morning. It will be appearing before my committee. There was no releases for capital expenditure. Meanwhile, we set up the office with the purpose that they will have regional offices. They will operate like the way IOCO operates, the way SHRAG operates, the way Narcotics Control Board operates, regional offices, even district offices. So that if I have to report a matter on a corruption or corruption-related matter from South Dine, I don't have to travel to Accra. I should be able to walk to the office of the district corruption of a prosecutor and make a report for him or her to take it up in South Dine, in Afajatu, in North Dine, in Huhuwe, within the proximity of my district.
Okay. But you've been a member of parliament for some time.
Yes, no, for 3 years.
Yeah.
Now, hold on, let me make this point.
Okay.
But the government at the end of the 2019 operational year releases only 20% of the funding, or even less than 20% of the funding meant for this agency. How are they going to operate? No wonder the report that he has submitted shows that he handled only 2 cases. 2 cases, 2. He investigated 2 cases and has filed 2 cases in court.
Is it one of them being the Ayariga case?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea. But the report that he has brought to us, 2 for 28 million.
And you say that that's worrying?
It's worrying.
Oh.
It's worrying.
For 28 million Ghana cedis and only 2 also speaks abysmally about how perhaps poorly he's working.
But the man has had cause to complain
that
about the non-cooperation of the appointees of the government. Didn't you hear that?
Well, I've heard him.
He's set up to receive cooperation.
He says many other related things that has also drawn criticism from civil society as well. That they want him to work and not constantly be in the face.
But you see, that is the point.
Are you saying 28 million couldn't have, or it depends what their appropriations were for?
You know, and so yesterday somebody made a point that it is based on demand. The man says, for instance, have you given him any releases so that he will be able to set up office in the Volta Regional Capital, for instance?
Okay.
There was no releases for capital.
So my question I wanted to ask.
So the question is that government does not appear by its conduct to be committed to the process of fighting corruption in this country.
What you have said, is it not paradoxical, knowing that government, apart from that its manifesto report, has been committed in going through the processes of putting together a bill, sponsoring it, coming to Parliament, and subsequently the Special Prosecutor Act, now a full law, okay, and setting up the office, having the appointment made, and then we turn around and say that it looks like government is not committed?
Roland, I am not the one saying it looks like. It is the figures. It is the report that says government's commitment to resourcing.
Isn't it your interpretation of so-called figures?
No. Okay. Why? If by your own estimation, you estimated that I needed 180 million, I needed 118 cedis to be able to do a certain work, and you give me 2.8 cedis, how am I supposed to effectively perform that? That's the point I'm making, Roland. So by your commitment, because you are my financier, you are supposed to give me the money. You have refused to give me the money. So I can only invariably say that by your conduct, you are not committed to me performing well. And it's as simplistic as that.
But there should be a drawdown. You have appropriations that have been made for a certain financial year or for certain line items of expenditure. If you don't draw down, you get nothing.
What is the meaning of drawdown?
Well, you go and say, I have this, and this is what I need. This has been allocated for me. I'm coming for it.
Now, the man submits a report and says that there's been no releases for even compensation. So I have posed the question that does it mean that even his salary and those of his 70 member staff have not been paid?
He would have told us by now.
Yes.
So it means
but the report says there's nil releases in terms of compensation. No capital expenditure. No wonder the man complains about even his office setup. Do you know his office? Do you know where he operates from? I don't know.
Is it not that building that he has?
I don't know. By now, with the euphoria with which we established this office, his office should have been well known by now at an appointed and choicest location.
For accessibility.
For accessibility. So that is the point. I'm saying that by government conduct, government's chorus about being committed to fighting corruption and all that is but a fluke. It appears that the office of the special prosecutor, it's an empty shell.
Yes. There's one thing that many disagree with IMANI about, is saying that under governance it's yet to be fulfilled. They help in the implementation of the representation of the people's law. We do know what the current processes and structures are, what the ruling of the court has been. And subsequently, the onus lies with the Electoral Commission. How does it become a government issue?
You see, it is a government issue because the government sets the agenda. Even though within Article 45...
You mean by way of facilitation?
Hold on. Even though within Article 45, which determines the functions of the Electoral Commission, and Article 46, which determines the independence in the performance of the functions of the Electoral Commission, it assesses independence. It is the government that sets the agenda for the Electoral Commission mainly. For instance, didn't the government withdraw a referendum Didn't it affect the work of the electoral? Even though some of us have said that by that conduct, the government has conducted itself unconstitutionally. Because it's only the Electoral Commission that could withdraw the referendum bill, because the writ had been issued. So its work has been interfered with. Now, Electoral Commission, by the Supreme Court decision and further directives, the Electoral Commission is built to roll out the RUPA, isn't it? How many countries do we have? Can the Electoral Commission effectively conduct elections in all the 180 recognized nations in this world where Ghanaians are located? That is the problem.
First, we have to locate where the Ghanaians are.
Exactly. And register them. And set up polling stations for them. And so those are the operational difficulties regarding the directive of the Supreme Court. And there will be resistance if they decide to do a piecemeal rollout of the policy. You understand?
Yeah.
So it will become. I see the reason why IMANI will want to make that a governance issue. Yes, I see the reason why IMANI will want to make it a governance issue, and if there are adverse consequences for the performance of the government, he will slap the government by it.
But back onto the subject of governance and the corruption-related issues. If you look at the president's responses to perceived lack of commitment to prosecuting or calling to order and subsequently prosecuting so-called his appointees who may have infringed on the law in relation to whatever it is that they are doing in office. Then there have been a number of cases for which we've had properly constituted bodies undertaking or handling them, and for which the president has said so. But not only the opposition, but even some sections of civil society and even the media seem to be in disagreement. That whether it's a case where the special prosecutor was handling one and we're told that another state agency like the CID was handling one, there seemed to be a disagreement why it should not be the special prosecutor, but rather it should be the CID in some of those related cases. Why do we seem to think that the president seemed to be covering his appointees when that clearly is not the case?
You see, it is not simply saying the president appears to be covering, as it were, or holding brief for the infractions of his appointees. He has clearly demonstrated those traits. And I'll give you a few examples. If you recall, one of the initial scandals that hit the government was the bust scandal. Now, quickly, the minister caused a committee to look into the conduct of the then CEO. Now, at the same time, the police were instructed to also move in to investigate the matter. To the same incident, the same complaint, two different investigative bodies. Now, the police came out with their report to say that the gentleman was not culpable. Now, the minister's report reprimanded the CEO. Now, what happened eventually was that the CEO got removed. The president never gave us the reason why he removed the CEO.
But he's the appointing authority.
Exactly.
Is he supposed to come back?
Hold on.
Yes, sir.
Exactly. If the president had not been embarrassed by the conduct of the CEO.
Is it not your supposition?
It's not my supposition. I'm just making an inference from the scenario. Why would the young man, why would the president sack him? But for clear reasons of allegations of corruption.
Perceived.
Well, you understand. The president should have expressly told us why he was firing him. And that matter is still lingering. Now, if I take you to the issue of the seat for cash allegation, you recall that even when Parliament was looking into the matter, the president was giving public speeches and saying that that investigation will amount to nothing. It was much ado about nothing, and that the honorable minister and his deputies were clean. That is where the label of the labeling of the president as a clearing agent began. You don't undermine the work of investigative bodies. Allow them to finish their work and issue their report and let them clear. But he was clearing the gentleman before the reports were issued. You understand me? Now, there's been some other ones. You recall the purchase of the Oslo Chancery issue. That
was an allegation raised by
the minority.
Yes.
Yes.
The minority.
Yes.
Especially its ranking
yes,
on the foreign affairs.
Yes. That matter is still lingering. It's been a year ago.
Was it authenticated?
Yes.
Corroborated?
Yes. And there are reports, there are documents. They sign agreements and then the contents of the agreement conflicted with the contents of the documents, the report that they submitted to Parliament detailing how the $50 million that we got as loan was to be expended.
There is an official response.
Then let me deal with this one.
Wait.
PDS.
Wait, hold on to PDS. Well. The Oslo Chancery issue, there is an official position of government as espoused by the Foreign Affairs Minister. And it says there had been no financial commitment by government. There was an interest. And subsequently, the attention being drawn to it based on what had been raised by the ranking member, then will make government reassert itself and make a decision. And subsequently, that was what was done. The government had not been bound by any sort of agreement in relation to any liability thereof. And so if that becomes a scandal, people will question how that becomes a scandal.
Roland.
Yes, sir.
You submit a report to Parliament. And in that report, you detailed the expenditure lines for a specific loan amount to be expended on renovating, acquiring new properties, and all that of a lot of foreign properties of our foreign missions. Why didn't we question all the others except the Oslo one? Now, if you go into the details of the Oslo scandal, they had actually signed an agreement. All right? And pursuant to the signing of that agreement, you have listed it as part of the properties you were going to expend money on. But for the fact that the issue was raised, don't you think we would have expended the money? But because you have brought a report, Parliament had approved the report for you.
But at the end of the day,
hold on.
Some attention was drawn.
Roland, it is
by the ranking member, and then the news report generated thereof. And as a result of that, a decision was taken. How does that become a scandal?
Hold on. Anytime
there was no financial commitment and loss.
No. Why didn't they engage lawyers to advise regarding?
Well, if you want to make a decision to make a purchase,
yes,
yeah, definitely
you engage lawyers.
But
you pay legal fees.
Yes, but at the end of the day, you don't expend the principal amount.
Who told you?
Oh, how much did we
payment? Do you know how much legal fees they paid?
Oh, but if you pay a legal fee,
Roland. So don't let people, when people are caught, don't be convinced by the convenient arguments they put out. What they did was beyond a mere declaration of intent. You have actually gone ahead to bind us into an agreement. It is the content of the agreement that we use to torpedo their position. That is why that matter had never been wished away. You realize that the Africa Watch magazine did a detailed report on the matter. They went to Oslo to investigate the matter. So it is not as simplistic as saying that. So why did you bring the report to Parliament? That you spent about 12-point-something million on the Oslo Chancery property, and Parliament approved of it.
Yeah, you were raising issues of PDS. No,
yes.
What about it?
Now, PDS. You recall that
you consider that a scandal too?
It's a scandal. In fact, it's the biggest scandal.
For which you thought government should have been more expedient in the decisions and the actions.
In fact, government should have dismissed a lot of its appointees in the PDS scandal. And let me tell you why. When they brought the report, our leader was briefed. Now, our leader was briefed. So they raised the issue. And he cautioned them that they should take the report back and retake a look at it. They refused. They used their numbers to pass it. Now, later, it was discovered that there was fraud. We didn't say it. They issued their own report and commissioned lawyers to travel to Dubai to go and look into the matter. When the fraud was indeed established, they took a decision to now restructure the program. Even in the restructuring, they were still met with a lot of mess. So eventually, it had to be withdrawn. Big companies that were established just 12 months down the line were being given opportunities. They are no basis.
I'm still trying to pinpoint hard which section of this transaction which makes government culpable
now,
in any action of intent of not fighting any scandal or corruption. No, because government, throughout the whole process, brought out its own report and said that it had noticed certain anomalies within a certain process of the transaction.
A transaction of this nature. When
government takes on its...
Roland, you are taking my time.
Yes, sir.
When a government says that I have uncovered fraud, initially raised by the minority, confirmed by the board of ECG, and eventually confirmed by the independent lawyers that government itself commissioned and paid money to. What is government supposed to do?
The minority and other related concerns were just speculative. The government formally came
Hold on. We were not speculative. We were giving the government a pointer. We were asserting our position. Government eventually agreed with us. What was government supposed to do? Government was supposed to have directed the police to investigate the matter.
Well,
the criminal conduct
you didn't come out with any corroborative facts.
We did. We did. So why was the agreement withdrawn? To the extent that Ghana had to lose almost $200 million in the process. $190 million is not money that you put in your back pocket and walk around with it. That was a lot of money. And let me touch on Ameri.
Well, what about Ameri?
Ameri, when they were in opposition, they vilified the NDC and said that the fact that...
Ameri too is a scandal?
Yes. If Ameri is not a scandal, what is it? If you vilify a government for contracting for the tenure of 5 years, and the financial implication was $530 million, and you come and you extend it to 1.2 billion, is that not scandalous? Is that not a scandal? So for me, Roland, and why was the Minister of Energy sacked? The president told us that he was misled. Did you hear him say that?
Well, the minister is appointed by the president.
It was an official.
And the president makes a decision as to whether to appoint or disappoint.
Why is it that other appointees who are fairly working well have not been sacked? You are sacked for a reason.
That's an assumption that the minority is making.
It's not an assumption.
You are making an assumption. You said that's fact.
The minister said that the president said that he was misled. That was the basis for the president to sack the minister. Why? On what grounds was the president misled? On what grounds? Today, Ameri has been extended. It's costing the nation twice, more than twice what it was originally costing us. Is that not scandalous? So, my brother, Ejaku himself spoke, and he said a lot of things regarding this Ameri thing. So there are a lot of issues where when officials are culpable, if you remember the GNPA matter, Ghana National Procurement Agency issue, chief executive and the deputies, a lot of issues, Ghana Gas,